All right, if you operate, maintain, or have anything to do with the classic Airbus A300-600, you're going to want to pay close attention. Today, we're breaking down a really critical safety directive, EASA's AD 2017-158R2, and it all boils down to one specific part, fuselage frame 40. So let's get one thing straight right off the bat. For the A300-600 models that this directive covers, this is not a recommendation. It's a mandatory repetitive inspection that is now required. Compliance is not optional here. So what is this thing really? Well, you can think of it as a critical safety order. Its entire purpose is to prevent a catastrophic failure. How? By forcing operators to regularly inspect fuselage frame 40 to find and fix any potential cracks long before they can ever threaten the plane's structural integrity. Okay, so why frame 40? Out of all of the components on that aircraft, why the intense focus on this one specific part? Let's dig into the hidden threat that prompted this whole directive.
It's the big question, isn't it? Why has AISA singled out this one frame for so much attention? Well, the answer, as it often is, lies deep inside the engineering analysis.
Here's the nitty-gritty. Airbus did its homework, and a full stress analysis revealed a real risk of cracks forming in a very specific spot, the lower outboard radius of frame 40. But, and this is the most important part, this condition only affects aircraft that have had modification 1022-1 installed. The risk? It's as serious as it gets. If these cracks go undetected, they could compromise the entire fuselage structure. Okay, so we know the what, and we know the why. Now let's get super clear on the who. Which aircraft exactly are we talking about here? As you can see, this directive casts a pretty wide net across the A300-600 family. We're talking passenger versions, freighters, the whole lot. So it doesn't matter if you're hauling people or packages. But honestly, the specific model isn't even the most crucial factor. Because this is the detail that truly matters. This airworthiness directive is laser-focused. It applies only to aircraft that have had modification 1022 embodied. If your plane doesn't have that mod, you're in the clear. And it's also worth pointing out the unique A300-600 ST, the Beluga, is completely excluded from all of this. Now, to help manage all this, EASA split the affected fleet into two buckets. You've got Group 1, which are the planes that were inspected way back before September 8th, 2017, and then Group 2 is, well, it's everybody else. Knowing which group your aircraft falls into is the absolute first step in figuring out your compliance deadline. All right, so you've done your research, you've confirmed your aircraft is on the list. What's next? What does this directive actually require you to do? Let's walk through the inspection mandate. Okay, the process itself is very methodical. First, you've got to know your group, Group 1 or 2. Second, you need to calculate its average flight time, or AFT. We'll talk more about that in a sec. Third, you grab the Airbus service bulletin to find your specific inspection threshold. Then you do the inspection. And finally, and this is a big one, you have to report all of your findings back to Airbus within 30 days. Yeah, that means even if you find nothing, they need to know. Now, this special detailed inspection, the SDI, this isn't just a mechanic shining a flashlight on the frame. We're talking serious, non-destructive testing here. The directive specifies things like high-frequency eddy current and maybe even rototest or ultrasonic scans to find any cracks that might be hiding beneath the surface. Remember that average flight time I mentioned? Well, here's why it's so important. It directly impacts your maintenance schedule. Aircrafts that fly short hops with an AFT of an hour and a half or less have totally different deadlines than the long-haul planes. So, a cargo airline flying short regional routes might have to do these inspections way more often than a carrier flying across oceans. And make no mistake, this is not a one-and-done fix, not even close. This AD establishes a permanent recurring inspection program. Depending on your aircraft's flight profile, you could be doing this check anywhere from every 1,900 to 7,100 flight cycles. This is now a part of that airframe's life. So let's zoom out a bit. What does all this mean beyond the maintenance hangar? Let's talk about the ripple effects on flight safety and, of course, the bottom line. This quote is pulled right from the directive, and wow, it leaves zero room for interpretation. The safety implication is absolute. If your inspection finds a crack, that aircraft is grounded, period. The repairs aren't just required, they have to be done before it takes off even one more time. From an operational standpoint, the consequence is pretty clear. You have to work these detailed, repetitive inspections into your schedule, which almost certainly means more aircraft downtime. And that takes some really careful planning to make sure your flight schedules don't get thrown into chaos. So, for anyone in management, the takeaways here hit pretty much every department. From a safety perspective, it's non negotiable. Operationally, your maintenance programs must be updated. Financially, you have to start budgeting for these new recurring costs. And if you're in leasing, you better believe this AD needs to be a key point in every single agreement. Okay, let's pull all this information together. What's the game plan? Let's build a concrete action plan to make sure you're fully compliant and ready to go. Looking at the timeline, that 2017 date is in the rearview mirror. That's what decided if your plane was Group 1 or 2. The date that you need to have circled in red right now is September 26th, 2025. That is when Revision 2 of this directive officially kicks in, and everyone has to be compliant. The clock is ticking. So, to make sure you're ready, here is your final checklist. Go through your fleet, aircraft by aircraft, and verify which ones this AD applies to. For each of those, figure out its specific compliance threshold and get those initial and recurring inspections on the books. And finally, update your maintenance program and make sure you have a rock-solid process for reporting your findings back to Airbus. And that really brings us to the final crucial question that every single affected operator out there needs to be asking themselves. It's not just about knowing this directive exists, it's about being prepared to execute. The deadline is coming up fast. So, is your maintenance program truly ready?